It is Tuesday morning, East Lansing, Michigan. Come on in, gather around, gather around, gather around, get your things together, get all your shopping done because it's game week in East Lansing. Michigan State Spartans, your Michigan State Spartans, getting ready to kick off Friday night. Western Michigan Broncos, Spartan Stadium, getting ready to kick off the 2025 Michigan State football season. College football, you guys ready? College football. Let's bring it in. And Michigan State. Been watching them closely through the spring, the offseason, and into preseason and training camp, talking to coaches, talking to players. They're going to be respectable. They're going to be competitive. That's what I think. How many wins is that going to be? We'll talk about that a little bit more here in the latest edition of Spartan Mag Live. We're not recording it live tonight. We are taking your questions, mailbag style as we always do, but no comment section today, no guests. We're just going to record it, put it up on the YouTube channel. Make sure to give us a like here at the YouTube channel, Spartan Mag YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go over to SpartanMag.com. Become a SpartanMag.com subscriber. $1 American, one greenback, $1. You can try it for 7 days. Test drive SpartanMag.com and you will like it. And today's Spartan Mag Live, it's not really live, it's just taped before a studio audience. We got about 10, 12 questions. We'll buzz through those. And we'll have some fun with that. We've also got some sponsors we're going to talk about a little bit today also. But first of all, question number one, John Dons from Elk Rapids, Michigan. He says, what do you perceive to be the weakest position group on the team? And these are questions from a few weeks back. I've been meaning to do a Spartan Mag Live for a while now. These questions still have shelf life to them. They're from back a couple weeks ago, but they still are pertinent. So we're going to go over these and maybe save some others as we move forward. Weakest position, place kicker is the biggest question mark. Is it weak? We'll have to wait and see. I mean, you had Tariq Ahmet Basic, sophomore from Clinton Township. Also Martin Connington, redshirt freshman from Meridian, Idaho. Those guys were supposed to be battling for the kicking job. They both had groin injuries. Ahmet Basic was coming back last couple of days. Jonathan Smith in Monday's press conference said that he might be back for the game. Meanwhile, Connington's going to be out a little bit longer. And what do we have here? Excuse me for a second. Test. Yeah, we're good. Connington's going to be out for a little bit longer. Meanwhile, Blake Sislow from Davenport, transfer from Davenport, that's in the Grand Rapids area, Division II. He's been doing the kicking, and Jonathan Smith said today, his numbers actually have been as good as Jonathan Kim's were last year during training camp. As I wrote today at SpartanMag.com, if Jonathan Smith is worried about the kicking situation, he's really not showing it. Maybe he's just a great poker player and he doesn't really show how he's feeling on things, but he really does not seem worried about the kicking situation. If I'm a Michigan State fan, I'm worried about it. Maybe Smith doesn't want to heap more tension and attention onto it by coming out and freaking out about it. So I kind of understand maybe the psychological buttons he's pushing, but Tariq Ahmet Basic and Martin Connington, I think the coaching staff was pretty confident about those guys coming out of spring practice, even though I heard that there was it wasn't the greatest spring at that position. But bottom line is Michigan State did not seem to search into the portal for the kicking position, so they felt good about Connington and Ahmet Basic. But those guys, I think, just worked so hard that they ended up they both suffered groin injuries. So weakest position, that would be kicker. And Blake Sislow. The thing about Sislow, if he ends up kicking, maybe Michigan State can get away with that for the Western Michigan game. Boston College and other games going to need more reliable kicking, unless Sislow just stuns everybody. And sometimes at the kicking position, people do come out of nowhere and stun people. You saw it happen in Hawaii last weekend. And just going back to Bryce Behringer at Michigan State, a guy that was pretty much cut at Illinois, tried out at Michigan State, didn't need him. 4 years later, he's putting up school record numbers. He's in the NFL. I know that's punter. This is place kicker. It's different. But maybe Sislow is the next all-time great success story. Sislow went to Davenport College, 3 years on the team, never kicked the ball in 3 years. Transferred presumably to Michigan State last year. Did not play college football last year. This summer, tries out for the team. Tries out at camp. I don't think he was with the team in the spring. Pretty sure I read that right. I don't remember him being there. Comes out for the team. Apparently he's doing pretty well. But most worrisome position, kicker. Everybody knows kicker is important. If Michigan State's getting a situation where they get inside the 30-yard line and they don't think they're going to be scoring and they're going for it on 4th and 6 all the time, that can turn a 7-5 team into a 5-7 team. That's what I would be worried about. Question number 2, Matt from Bloomfield Hills, Michigan says, do you believe in this coaching staff, Jim? Simple and direct. Can we get a consistent bowl game team under this coaching staff? Bowl game. All you want's a bowl game? It's quite different than, and I nothing against Matt in Bloomfield Hills. I understand where he's coming from. But when Mark D'Antonio was head coach, people were not happy with just a bowl game. Now that Michigan State's been out of a bowl game in 20, 22, 23, and 24 for the last 5 years, now a bowl game seems to suffice for some people. And that's the way I'm not saying that's the way it should be, but that's a realistic approach. At the bigger 10, 18 schools, a lot of them are good. And I've been mentioning this during the offseason. When you're looking at Michigan State and what the record might be this season, last year 5-7. Last year there were 9 teams, half of the Big Ten. 9 teams were between 5-7 and 7-5. Michigan State was at the lower end of that at 5-7, along with Wisconsin. Other teams in that category, some pretty big brands: USC, Michigan, Washington, Nebraska, Michigan State, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and some others. Iowa was above that. Illinois was above that. Indiana was above that. But over the course of time, there's going to be 9 or 10 teams that are 5-7 and 7-5 between those two parameters. And Michigan State's going to land in there quite often. And there's going to be some teams landing in there that are not going to be comfortable with it, but they need to understand that's the way the Big Ten's going to be. Now, with 9-game schedules and the amount of quality teams, especially with Indiana being good, Illinois being good, Rutgers is pretty good, Iowa remains good. There's only 2 bad teams in the Big Ten, Northwestern and Purdue. The other 16 are pretty good. Maryland, have to wait and see. The other 15 are pretty good, including Michigan State. And mathematically, that there's going to be there's games lost and losing seasons. And as Mark D'Antonio used to say, the difference between winning and losing is that much. The difference between 5-7 and 8-4 sometimes can be that much, especially if your schedule, you get some scheduling breaks. If you play Northwestern and Purdue, that's a scheduling break. Michigan plays Northwestern and Purdue. That's 2 gimmies that they get, and that's a big difference in the overall win-loss record. I think Michigan's win-loss record is going to be better than what they actually are this year. So if they go 8-4, I think they could be a 6-6 team that goes 8-4. You follow what I'm saying? Maybe they're a 7-5 team that goes 9-3 because of the schedule. That's if they beat Oklahoma. We'll see. So the question is this coaching staff, to use Matt's terminology, can we get a consistent bowl game team under this coaching staff? The answer is yes. And you might say, well, getting a bowl game, that's no big deal. I just outlined to you that there's going to be some good teams that are 5-7. Wisconsin, not a good team. Michigan State, not a good team last year. Close. But, yeah, this coaching staff can get there. I think they're gaining traction. We haven't seen this team play since November. And didn't see them in a bowl game, didn't see them in the green-white game. But watching them in practice, that's all I can go by. Keeping my ear to the ground, talking to some people, some insiders, some outsiders, trying to find out what's going on. I do think they're going to be better on the offensive line. Great on the offensive line? Not yet. But watching Jim Mahalchik work in practice, I'm impressed with his approach, the tempo. Last year, I think it was a learning situation for a lot of players and the coaching staff. Some of the things they like to do with the wide zone, they gave up a lot of tackles for loss last year, but it was a lot of new people learning a new offense, and it was ugly at times. But I think the offensive line is going to be better, and that's going to be a key component to the whole operation being better. But I'm impressed with Jonathan Smith's methodical, confident, pragmatic approach. The progress that he had at Oregon State, I think it's applicable to this, although this assignment is more difficult, but there are more resources. There's more recruiting pull and potential, even though they still are big in the evaluation part of recruiting, evaluation and development. But I think they can do some good things at Michigan State. And I think Jonathan Smith is getting comfortable with Michigan State. Second time around, second lap around, you can just see a little bit more of his personality coming out. Now, he has a subdued personality, but you can see some more confidence coming out. You can see some more know-how. They believe they're going to get some things done. I like the way Jonathan Smith also keeps academics part of the equation. not only when he's on the recruiting trail, but with the players. He was talking Monday at the press conference about how they needed to be crisp with tempo and practice and get things done because they needed to finish practice by 12:20 or something like that, because he said they had 49 players or some figure like that. He knew exactly how many players on the team had a class at 12:40, and they're going to class. Michigan State sent out a video today of Jess McCulloch, redshirt freshman center, going around on a scooter, just enjoying a day in the life, enjoying going to class, enjoying going around, zipping around, seeing his teammates. And he was talking to some of the freshmen and also Jeremy Fears, talking to them about, hey, did you guys go to class? Hey, what'd you think of class today? It was a light load today. They actually go to class at Michigan State, basketball and football. You may not think that's a big deal, but I think it's going to become increasingly rare in today's NIL transfer portal world. That included, that includes the transfers that have been in other schools coming in for 1 year at Michigan State. They're going to class, and may not mean a lot to a lot of you or to some of you, but I think it means a lot to the good ones of you that are out there. I like it for any program in college sports to hear guys that are going to class, trying to pursue a degree, all those things while they're getting paid. Good for them. So can this coaching staff do it? Get to a bowl game? What did you say? Get a consistent bowl game? Can we get a consistent bowl game team under this coaching staff? The answer is yes. Does it begin this year? They're going to be in the hunt. And again, you might say, in the hunt for a bowl game, that's no good. It's tougher in the Big Ten right now. Everybody knows that Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State are elite national championship contenders. Meanwhile, Illinois is the best they've been in, 20 years. Rutgers is the best they've been in 25 years. Indiana is the best they've been maybe ever. So those three are up. So you have those three elite teams, then those three are up. I'm not saying Rutgers is in that category. I'm just saying that those, they've had Schiano for a number of years, and they got the run game cooking, and the defense is pretty good. They're not great, but Rutgers is not easy to beat. They're better than Michigan State last year. You saw it in the regular season finale. Those three. Then you have USC is in prove-it mode this year. Michigan, they lose a couple games. People are going to freak out about them. What are they going to be? Not sure. Nebraska thinks they're going to have a little bit of a surge this year. So those three elites, those three that are up in the cyclical nature of college football, Michigan hovering around there, Iowa 8-4 every year. They got a quarterback coming in from where? South Dakota, something like that. They're pretty high on him. What if they have an offense? Washington, Jed Fish, good coach. Good quarterback. Washington's going to be good. These are strong brands. So there's going to be strong brands that don't go to bowl games in the Big Ten. So getting to a bowl game, you might not think that's a big deal, but as Michigan State tries to get the program back in strong footing, it's no small deal, especially as they try to make some progress this year. And I think that this staff is heading in the right direction toward doing that. Question 3, Mullen Labe from Gladwin, Michigan says, I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy, but we keep hearing nice tidbits about Alessio Milivojevic. Milivojevic, redshirt freshman, backup quarterback from Naperville, Illinois. Mike Stroker might be watching from Naperville. The million-dollar question is, will Aiden Childs improve enough to not lose games for Michigan State, and will Smith hesitate to give Alessio a look if Childs struggles? That's a question from Mullen Labe from Gladwin. He continues, it seemed as though Smith's success at Michigan State has been directly tied to Aiden Childs, but possibly not if quarterback 2 is ready to go. So that's a long question from Mullen Labe from Gladwin. The point of the question is, will Childs improve enough to not lose games, and will Smith hesitate to put Alessio in? If Childs struggles more than a little bit for more than a little while, then no, Smith, I don't think, will hesitate to go with Alessio Milivojevic. They like Milivojevic. He's been making steady progress. I've heard good things about him at the end of spring and in the summer. Good things from the wide receivers on and off the record about their impressions of him. The coaches like him, the quarterback coaches, the wide receivers coach, Courtney Hawkins, impressed with him. Talking about in the second scrimmage, Milivojevic deep pass to Rodney Bullard. Courtney Hawkins described it as a teach tape type of touchdown. The route, the catch, the arm. He says it was 65 yards in the air. Alessio's got an arm on him. Haven't seen him yet. He's got some athletic ability also. Redshirt freshman, Childs is a junior. So there's pretty good separation of those two guys class-wise. With Childs, he's bigger and stronger. I think he grew an inch also. Just standing next to him, I think he's grown an inch. Added some mass because he wants to be harder to tackle. So they'll be sprinkling in some of that zone read keeper stuff, and that can help you move the chains. He's got better receivers to work with this year. Childs does. Presumably better pass protection. Functional run game, we'll see. Last year had two pretty good running backs. K'Ron Lynch-Adams, Nate Carter, NFL free agents now. Michigan State's trying to develop Brandon Tullis, Mekhi Frazier, and Elijah Tolliver. Mekhi Frazier's got a nod on that right now. Jonathan Smith with a really interesting, strong quote on Monday saying that Frazier is close to becoming a complete back, unquote. And you might say, well, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Shouldn't he be a complete back? Well, yeah, if you're in Candyland and you think every running back is made to order, ready to go, turnkey type player. And maybe Michigan State should be a program that has a running back like that ready to step in when others graduate, but they're not there yet. But I like the way Jonathan Smith says that he's close to becoming a complete running back. First of all, he's not over-promising. He's not banging pots and pans together, shooting off flares and whistles and over-promising on a player. When he says a guy's close to becoming a complete back, to me, I look forward to interest. I wonder when he's going to say he's become a complete back, and I'll be interested to see what that looks like as we listen to Jonathan Smith over the years, and we try to and we begin to get an idea of the way he describes things, the way he sees things. Then we will know even more whether a quote like that is a big deal, and I suspect it is a big deal because Frazier in the spring and last fall was just a freshman learning things. I heard in the second scrimmage he did better. He made some progress. The entire run game did. With some physicality, some make you miss. He's a guy with some make you miss. Pass protection, can catch the ball as well. So Frazier, run game, probably the lead guy. I don't know. If the offensive line is better, the run game will be better. Last year, Michigan State had two pretty good running backs, but the run game was not good because the offensive line was not good. Partly because of all the injuries and other things. So, with Childs, does he have a run game? Does he have run blocking? Does he have pass protection? He will have better receivers. Tight ends will be better also. In addition to all those things, will he be able to make reads? Pre-snap reads, anticipation, where to go with the ball, and those things. Won't know until it's on the field. But he's got the tools. Everybody knows that. What's it going to look like? You'll know when I know. Not sure. Question 4, Tino from Long Beach, California. Do you think this team can win 7 or 8 games and beat Michigan, he asks. Answer, what's the record going to be? Most likely, like I said, in that log jam in the middle between 5-7 and 7-5. 7-5 is possible. 6 is more likely. Winning 8, in college football, you're going to have ups and downs. Michigan was a big down at the beginning of the year, came back after that. Florida State really went off a cliff. Indiana, Arizona State came out of nowhere. And I think you're going to see more of that in the NIL transfer portal era. Could Michigan State be one of those teams that makes it a drastic climb? A lot of ifs have to come through. I'm not ready to predict that right now. Would not shock me. Not to the level of Arizona State and Indiana last year, not with the schedule. But I think they're going to be tough to beat. I think Michigan State, you're going to have to work to beat Michigan State. And maybe it'll happen 6 times this year. I'm not sure. But Michigan State will be better this year. Michigan State, better quarterback play, better wide receiver play. They've gotten better. The defense will be solid for Michigan State. They're excited about the defensive front 7. Pass rush, don't expect miracles there. And they're still trying out 3 or 4 different guys to see who's going to take that thing over. And it's going to be based on game day production. But as far as the schedule goes, Western Michigan should be a win. Boston College, you got to win that game. Youngstown State should be a win, obviously. Boston College, I think Michigan State might be a 2-point favorite on the BetMGM odds line. But it's strange to talk about it like being a 1 or 2 point favorite, and that being a must win. That's how tight things are. And everybody looks at the end of the season, beat Maryland and Detroit, beat UCLA on homecoming, noon. West Coast team coming in for a noon kickoff. That helps. I've seen West Coast teams go out to the East at noon and actually win games in recent years. I think somebody beat Virginia. I know Virginia's not Michigan State, but you got to win these games. Western Michigan, Boston College, Youngstown State, Maryland, UCLA. That's 5 wins using the abacus. So you guys know the schedule. Got to find one more win to get to 6. 2 more wins to get to 7. You're asking about 8. At USC, ranked number 30 in the country. USC, if they win some games early, they're going to be ranked. I think they'll be ranked at some point. Nebraska's number 34 in the country. I think Nebraska's going to be ranked at some point this year. Indiana's number 20 in the country. Michigan's number 14. It seems like those should be reversed, Michigan and Indiana. Indiana bringing in Mendoza, the quarterback from Cal Berkeley. He's going to be good. They still have that pass rusher. Still pretty good on the offensive line. At Nebraska, at USC, at Indiana, at Minnesota, at Iowa. Trying to win some games in there. Iowa's number 44 in the country in the AP poll preseason. They'll sneak around and be 8-4 again probably, and they'll be ranked at some point. They're number 44. Nebraska's 34. USC's number 30. My point is, all these teams I think are top 25 type of teams. And you're going at USC, at Nebraska, at Indiana, at Minnesota, at Iowa, and Michigan at home. Those 6 games. Can you win 1 to get 6-6? Yeah, I think they can. Last year they surprised Iowa. That's going to be harder this year going to Iowa City. The Iowa coaches thought that was Iowa's worst game of the year. They're embarrassed about it. They berated their players about it. Iowa's usually a bastion of consistency, but they feel they choked that game. Michigan State feels that Michigan State played well, and they think they could have replicated that more often. Going to Iowa to beat them, going to be tough. A lot of these games, I made a post over at the Underground Bunker message board about Michigan State there are some positives schedule-wise in terms of who these teams are playing the week before they play Michigan State. And there are positives there in terms of teams coming back from the West Coast or playing a rivalry game the week before they play Michigan State. Now, Michigan State has rough games all the way around, so Michigan State doesn't have many, cupcakes. No cupcakes in terms of getting a break before you play Michigan or before you play Indiana, before you play Nebraska. There's no easy ones. When Michigan State goes to USC, they have a bye week afterward, which is a plus to go out west, and then a bye week to recover. Last year they went to Oregon, bye week to recover, then they beat Iowa. They played Oregon out west, bye week, then they played their best game of the year. If they can do that again, that would be good for Michigan State, obviously. But trying to find a win in there at USC, at Nebraska, at Indiana, at Minnesota, at Iowa. I'm guessing at Minnesota might be the most likely. Minnesota last year goes 8-5, won their bowl game. But Minnesota, everybody's talking about Penn State being great this year, preseason number 3, whatever they are. Minnesota lost to Penn State last year 26-25, played them to a 1-point game. Lost to North Carolina by 2, the Gophers did. Gophers lost to Iowa by 17, lost to Michigan by 3. They beat USC. Lost to Illinois by 8, lost to Rutgers by 7, beat Wisconsin by 17, beat Virginia Tech by 14 in the bowl game. So, Minnesota is consistently solid. New quarterback, Drake Lindsley, 6'5", 230, only 5 pass attempts last year. Last year, they 1 year at quarterback with Max Brosmer, the transfer from New Hampshire, did okay. Minnesota was respectable. So that's Michigan State's peer group. Can you go on the road and beat Minnesota to get to 6-6? Doesn't sound like a great achievement, but can you collect another win somewhere else? Beat Michigan at home. I think that might be the next most likely. If you can win at Minnesota, beat Michigan at Spartan Stadium, you're 7-5. So getting another win to get to 8, that would be an excellent season for Michigan State. Everybody thinks, or I think Nebraska is going to be pretty good, but they have a way of tripping over themselves a little bit. USC has a way of missing tackles at the end of games to blow games. Like I said, they lost at Minnesota last year, but this is at USC early in the season, and they think that they're onto something. And we talk about how I talk about what I'm not exactly sure what to expect of Michigan State. In the spring, I was saying I know the least about this team of any Michigan State team since 1992. Been doing a lot of studying during the offseason, going around and watching some of these transfers and what they did for other teams, whether they played last year for Florida State or Wake Forest or Western Carolina or Valdosta State or Texas State. I watched a lot of that. So I've got a little better feeling on things than I did in the spring. But still, a lot of us don't know much about Michigan State. So if we don't know much about Michigan State, how in the heck do we know everything we need to know about Minnesota or USC or Nebraska or even Iowa? We don't. Or Michigan. So we love college football. There's a lot of mystery, but a lot of these things could go either way. So, USC, they're going to go 3-0 before they play Michigan State. They play Missouri State, then Georgia Southern, then they play at Purdue. So there is some travel for USC. They go to Purdue, then they come back home to play host to Michigan State. USC last year, what were they, 6-6? Not that great of a season. But they beat LSU. They beat Texas A&M in a bowl game. They scored 35 points against Notre Dame, and they played Penn State to overtime. But then they lost at Minnesota. They lost 2 games at the LA Coliseum last year to Notre Dame and Penn State. 2 of the Final 4 teams in the country. Lincoln Riley, a lot of pressure there. He's got to start turning it around. All right, question 5 is going to come in from Shaw Lane, is his name, from Tawas City. He's got some questions about defensive line stuff. But first, let me see if I can find. First, I'm going to talk about Shoepan. You guys know Shoepan. They're a sponsor, SpartanMag.com, a partner. We love Shoepan. You guys love Shoepan. You've been taking them back. Haven't you? Take back your cans and bottles. As you know, Michigan State's recycling rate has fallen from 90% to 73% in recent years. Michiganders are squandering $105 million American dollars per year by not taking back their bottles and cans. Michiganders, $105 million, letting that slide. Don't let that slide. Take them back. That's hurting our environment in the state of Michigan. So help the environment, help yourself, help your beaches, help your lakes, help your roads. They're your roads. They're your beaches. They're your lakes. Take them back. It'll help the environment. It'll help yourself. It'll help your pocketbook. Take them back. It's a message from Shoepan, a great Michigan company dedicated to recycling and dedicated to your Michigan State Spartans. Question number 5, Shaw Lane from Tawas City. Tawas City, a beautiful town located around there. If I show you the Sunny Elliott map, Shaw Lane says, is this the year there could be a resurgence with the Michigan State defensive line? He asks. I'm hearing good things about Derek Simmons. He says that's the transfer from not a transfer from Frankenmuth. He's a freshman from Frankenmuth, which is right around here on I-75. You guys know that. Hearing good things about Derek Simmons, Ben Roberts, Big Worm, Grady Kelly, Ruquan Buckley, and Quindarius Dunnigan. What are your thoughts on the defensive line this year? He asks. Derek Simmons, good things. He's a good player, true freshman, but could be a third string guy. I'm thinking Derek Simmons plays 4 games and you redshirt him. That'd be a luxury. But could get on the field, could do some good things. Jonathan Smith mentioned him as somebody that went from, just kind of a young freshman mid-year enrollee in the spring, then summer conditioning, and then this year came back out, looked like a different person. So Simmons is on a nice track, upward track. Ben Roberts, Big Worm, Michigan State's most talented defensive lineman, gained 14 pounds, 6'2", 321. Michigan State has released some video from some of the scrimmages and so forth, and a few times I've seen Big Worm out there with Big Ruquan Buckley. That's 321 and 330. A couple of big guys. And if you're going to be that big, at least one of them needs to run well. Roberts can run pretty well. Buckley last year was a house, did a good job against double teams, did not get moved. Was a guy that didn't have a lot of mobility. I heard in April that he was perhaps the most improved player on the roster from November to April. I've not seen it with my own eyes, just telling you what I've heard. Roberts and Buckley together at a combined weight of 651. Hell of a tag team. And I don't think they're starting. I think it's going to be Ben Van Sumeren and Grady Kelly. Grady Kelly about 295. He's a strong stump in there. Watched him against Notre Dame last year when he's at Florida State, and he stood up pretty well to double teams and was pretty strong when he was two-gapping. Not a guy that's going to disengage and pursue down the line with a lot of speed. Not much speed there. He's not going to be a great sideline-to-sideline guy, but he can hold up pretty good. Quindarius Dunnigan slimmed down 14 pounds, defensive end, backing up Jalen Thompson at the down defensive end position. He can move inside, pass situations. Elsewhere along the defensive line, Jalen Thompson, pretty good freshman year, playing an emergency role last year as a sophomore. Not all that productive. This year, driven to take it up a notch and not just be a guy, but be a dude. And there's indications he's about ready to become a dude. And Dunnigan's pretty good. Named one of the 5 team captains, and Dunnigan, I think, second string. So that's a pretty good situation at the down defensive end. Jalen Thompson, Quindarius Dunnigan. I'm not saying either one of them is like a first team All Big Ten guy, but when he can split reps and stay fresh and keep tread on the tires for an entire season, week in and week out, I think defensive ends can be pretty good. Defensive tackles are pretty good when you've got Grady Kelly, Van Sumeren, Big Worm, and Buckley, and Jalen Satchel, who played about over 200 snaps last year, transferred from Old Dominion. Mike Schonbeeler redshirted last year, Chicago Simeon, big leg guy with some juice. And then Derek Simmons is the 7th guy. That's 3.5 deep at the 2 defensive tackle positions. But the big question on the defensive line is the stand-up edge pass rusher guy. And, you should be able to get pass rush from any of these people. You don't have to just get it from the edge rusher. The edge guy needs to be a good pass rusher and also has some versatility to drop into coverage periodically. That's the way Joe Rossi did it for the Gophers. Did it a little bit last year. They want to do it more as they go. But they didn't really have anybody on the roster that could play that position. So they had to go to the transfer portal and bring in some new players, including David Santiago from Air Force, Isaac Smith from Texas Tech, Analu Lafayette, redshirt freshman from Wisconsin. And I don't know who's starting among that group. And also, don't forget about Tyler Gillison. Transferred from Cincinnati last year, was injured, missed the entire season. I heard he did some good things in that second scrimmage. I won't say exactly how, but I'll be looking for it on Friday. What are you guys drinking today? Let me know. Let me know over at the Underground Bunker message board. So who's the guy at the edge? Santiago was the guy that got all the reps in the spring because the other guys weren't there yet. Tyler Gillison came up to me in June when I was at Michigan State's recruiting camp. And he said, talking to me and Jason Killup, he said, in so many words, he said something like, "Keep an eye on me. I'm going to be making an impact this year." Really confident. And then I understand he's been doing pretty good. So I don't know who started. It could be Gillison. Isaac Smith's had a couple of really good bowl games when he was at Texas Tech. One against Arkansas, one against Ole Miss. Those were his best games he's had at Texas Tech. Had like 1.5 sacks against Arkansas with a safety. He's had some injury problems. I think sat out 2023 the whole year with an injury. But big guy, 6'6", added some mass during the summer. So, as late as a couple of days ago, they were talking in terms of that's still an ongoing competition. They're going to have to settle on 1 or 2 guys. Jonathan Smith said, usually you're going to rotate 2 guys there. He says they might rotate more than that because they're looking to see who's going to take the bull by the horns, as Nick Saban used to say, to take over that job. And that's going to be determined, I would think, by what happens on game day on the field. Who's productive. So, best case scenario for a Michigan State fan, Michigan State handles Western Michigan, but don't go to the beer garden too early and check out. Continue to watch the second string offensive linemen, second string defensive tackles, second string linebackers, all the edge players, because the coaches are going to be watching that. Regardless, say Michigan State is fortunate enough to be up 28-3 or something, the game's not over. The game might be decided, but player development is so crucial, and you've not seen the Michigan State play since November. So why would you take your eyes off of it? I don't understand people like that, but I'm glad they do because it gives me something to write about because I'll be watching closely. Question number 6, Sparty11 from Kalamazoo says, what's the defensive tackle playing rotation that you anticipate for the first game? Player rotation defensive tackle, I'm expecting Alex Van Sumeren, Grady Kelly to start. Could be wrong. Van Sumeren needs to take a step. He's a very earnest Spartan dog, proud Spartan dog, says all the right things, feels all, you can just tell he's feels the way a Spartan dog should feel. People like Ron Armstrong and Jay Green and hundreds of Spartan dogs out there could probably appreciate the way Alex Van Sumeren approaches things. He's quick. He's always been real good in the t-shirt camps. He's got to be able to shock, got to be able to defeat blocks, hands. He doesn't have the longest arms, but Van Sumeren needs to take it up a level. He's started 12 games last year, and he was just a guy. He's got to become a dude. Will he? I'm not sure. Grady Kelly does a couple things okay. Ben Roberts, probably more talented than those 2 guys. At some point, does Ben Roberts become a starter? Could. But this game, I think it's going to be Kelly and Van Sumeren, Ben Roberts, Ruquan Buckley. And then we talked about Jalen Satchel. Over 200 snaps last year. Is he third string now? That's an indication of Michigan State's improving depth. You're seeing some players that have been starters or second stringer guys that are falling back to third string because better talent has come in over their heads, presumably. I don't want to write off Jalen Satchel just yet, but I'm hearing more about those guys than Jalen. And then Mike Schonbeeler is out there also, probably a third stringer. They're really high on him. So I'm expecting Kelly Van Sumer and then Roberts and Buckley. Buckley might not be as versatile as Satchel. So in passing situations, Satchel's more likely to be on the field than Buckley. Against running teams, you might see Buckley more. But I'm thinking Kelly Van Sumer, and I could be wrong. Question 7, Desert Sparty from Glendale, Arizona says, how much, Jim, he says, how much did you win in Las Vegas? Las Vegas was the Big Ten Media Days back in July. I didn't win anything. I did not bet in Las Vegas. I'm not much of a gambler. I did not place one bet. I do not gamble because it is too much of a gamble. Question 8, Bill from North Carolina. He says, one guy we don't hear too much about is right tackle Connor Moore. He says, can you offer some insight on his progress? No word means good news. He asks with a question mark. Connor Moore, 6'5", 306, transfer Montana State, originally from Millbury, Ohio. Second team FCS All-American last year for a team that played in the FCS National Championship game. Connor Moore. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to gross you out. But Connor Moore, Michigan State had to really hustle to bring him in as a transfer. I went back and watched him. Montana State against, I think, New Mexico State, and also the national championship game. He's quick with lateral movement, got some athleticism. The physicality, not quite there yet. It was okay, but not quite the Big Ten level, in my opinion. Been working on it in the spring, summer, into the fall. He's got 2 years of eligibility. I think he'll be pretty good at right tackle. He'll be better in pass protection than Ashton Lepo was last year. I'll be curious to see what kind of physicality he can bring in that position. I'm not sure that it'll be great in year one, but maybe he'll prove me wrong. Question 9. As we go quicker with this, without a studio audience. Well, we have a studio audience. We're taping live in front of a studio audience. That's not true. I just gotta say that. Those of you that watched sitcoms in the 70s, you probably know what I'm talking about. If you're younger than that, you think I'm stupid, and you're probably right. We're going along quickly here to get in and out, so it's not a 3-hour tour like we've seen in the past. I know some of you want these things to be shorter and quick in and out with the questions. No guests today, but we'll be doing some guests in the future. Mike from Jacksonville, Florida says, can you translate a few common coach speak expressions? So he's not offering the expressions. He's just asking me to translate some. And I've got a couple here. Like coaches often say, we have great respect for that program that we're about to play and their tradition. Translated, that means we don't give two craps about those jackwagons, unquote. Another one, you might hear a coach say, the team we're playing this weekend has excellent team speed and very good athletes. You hear that one a lot, right? Translated, that means, quote, we're playing these cupcakes because it's a guaranteed win, and it's a $7 million payday for athletic department anytime we play a home game. And if you schedule a team like this, you can play them at home, and we only have to pay them $800,000 to come in here. So that's what this team's all about, unquote. If I can translate that. One more. When a coach says, we haven't decided on a starting lineup yet, what it really means is, quote, we don't want to tick off some of these mamas and daddies out there. I don't have time to take their phone calls tomorrow as a coach. And some of these guys, we want to keep them out of the portal. So for now, I don't want to say anything about who's second string, unquote. That's what that really means. Question 10, Doc in Las Vegas. He says, 1, hey, before we get to Doc's question, let me see if I can find something else here. There it is. Look at that. That's the other sponsor here. Roback. That's Roback. You've seen some of their ads on Big Ten Network maybe this season. It's great stuff. Feels great. Great material. And they got a line of Michigan State stuff. We'll put that link here somewhere in the comments. We'll have that link for you. Got good looking hoodies there. Got the white hoodie, the green hoodie. There's a black hoodie, polos, Roback, good stuff. And we got some savings for you when it comes to Roback, 20% off. And there's only one way to describe Roback: best fit, best feel. And for those who are not familiar with Roback, They're completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable active wear. Rhoback has released some great new licensed items within the Rhoback Game Day collection. These are the Michigan State ones. And we're getting into hoodie weather. It's going to be hoodie weather on Friday. I don't know if you can get Rhoback to your door in time for the games on Friday, but we got some cold weather games coming up. Hoodie weather. You're going to want one of these. And they got the great hoodies. They also have novel polo designs, the clean hoodie, quarter zip designs from some of your favorite schools, including Michigan State. It's definitely worth checking out. Or for gifts. If you got a friend or a family member who's like a Purdue grad, I don't know if they've got Purdue stuff or not, but go check it out. I'll tell you what, they've got good stuff for the misses too. If you're in the gift giving season for birthdays and so forth. So check it out. Nobody else on the market is pairing these level of custom designs with this quality of activewear. Not just hoodies and quarter zips. Check out the everyday shorts and the Delta Performance pants. Super comfortable, elastic waistband, and great fabric. Check it out, Rhoback. Rhoback, it's the best. So go to rhoback.com, rhoback.com, RHOBACK, RHOBACK.com. We'll have the link. Use the code MSU20. MSU20, 20% off for all new customers. Again, that's spelled RHO back. RHOBACK. 20% off on all the stuff. MSU20. Check it out. Glad to have Rhoback with us. Supporting SpartanMag.com, On3, and everything else. Now, question 10. Oh, let me see. I lost it. It's from Doc from Las Vegas, right? Okay, he says, how is the offensive line depth looking? He says, I love Lepo back with 12 games of starting experience as a backup at guard and right tackle. Experience is huge, he says. Question number 1, how's the offensive line depth looking? Question number 2, any hopes of developing a pass rush? I don't know if that turned it down or not. Hope it did. I'll hit the other button next time. All right, offensive line depth. Better than last year. Last year by mid-September, first of all, you lost Geno Vandermark coming out of spring practice to the portal. And first game, Christian Phillips starts, gets injured. Third game, Gavin Brocious gets injured, had to move Baldwin from left tackle to right guard. Not a lot of strength there. Had to put Stanton Ramil at left tackle really before he was ready, but he did pretty well. But still, he had Ramil last year at left tackle and really no game-ready backup. Ramil got a little bit dinged up. Rakeem Johnson, true freshman, guard center, had to play left tackle. That's how thin they were. Luke Newman, good at left guard, NFL player now, but no game-ready backup last year. Talking about last year, comparing him to last year. Tanner Miller, really no game-ready backup for him. Dallas Fincher dabbled, but really wasn't quite good enough. Right guard, Brandon Baldwin. Now I think Fincher's at San Diego State, I think. Right guard, you ended up with Brandon Baldwin there after Phillips and Brocious went down. Fincher was still around, but his just wasn't quite good enough. Right tackle, Lepo, struggled in pass protection. So that was last year. Ramil, Newman, Miller, Baldwin, Lepo. Backups, didn't really have any. Rakeem Johnson a little bit. And Rakeem did well for a true freshman. This year, Stanton Ramil, a year better. Gavin Brocious, he's back healthy. Left guards had that job the entire spring and summer. I'll be curious to see what he looks like. He was functional last year in his first year starting. Needs to be better than that. Michigan State went out and got Caleb Carter from Western Carolina backing up there at left guard. But really, I think the backup left guard is going to be whoever doesn't start at right guard. Matt Gulbin has come in and impressed everybody at center from Wake Forest. Stronger than Tanner Miller was. And I watched Wake Forest when he played guard most of the year, played center against Duke. Duke had 2 really good defensive tackles. And he played against those guys, and he did well against those guys. Does Gulbin have the mobility to execute the wide zone and get out and run the way Jim Mulchick wants you to. There's one play for Wake Forest when it was a screen. He did show some athletic ability. I've been watching him in practice. Looks like he moves okay. And they would not have recruited him if they didn't think he could do it. And he's in there doing it, and he's impressing people. Offensive coordinator Brian Lindgren told the BTN touring people, Howard Griffith and those guys, that Gulbin might be the best player on the offense, including Nick Marsh. Matt Gulbin, the transfer center. Tanner Miller did pretty good last year, coming in from Oregon State with all the guys, but I think Gulbin is better. I think he's definitely stronger and more physical. Backing him up, Rakeem Johnson, now a second-string center. Rakeem can also, play tackle in a pinch like he did last year, but he's a better version of himself. Last year, he was a true freshman. Now he's a redshirt freshman, started against Ohio State, and he's a backup. So depth is better with Rakeem Johnson, with Caleb Carter coming in from Western Carolina. Caleb Carter's had some injury problems at Western Carolina. I watched him against NC State in some other games, and I didn't think he was great, but apparently he's doing okay. But I don't think he's a starter. Christian Phillips and Luka Vincic battling for right guard. Phillips started at right guard last year, was injured after the first game. Looked pretty good against Florida Atlantic last year. Then he was lost. Brocious went in. Then he was injured. So Phillips is back, and it's been Phillips and Luka Vincic battling at that position. I think Phillips is going to win that one out. And Phillips just keeps becoming more and more mature into his man years. Dropped about 15 pounds. When he was younger, his nickname is Big Dooley. And he had some baby fat on him. And that's been kind of sculpted out of him. I'm going to be curious to see what he looks like against Western Michigan. Luka Vincic, watched him last year for Oregon State. He played more than Phillips did. He played more than Gavin Brocious did. And I thought he looked pretty good. Coming off the bench, played some center, played some guard. I liked him a lot when I watched him for Oregon State last year. He's coming in battling with Phillips for that job. If he doesn't win that job, he'll be backing up Brocious at left guard. Basically, Brocious, Phillips, and Vincic probably being the backup can go either way. Can play some center also. So Vincic might not start, but he might get as many game reps, as many snaps as some of the starters. But that's the depth you're talking about. Rakeem Johnson, backup center. Luka Vincic, backup guard at both positions. They didn't have that last year. They had Rakeem Johnson, but this is a better version of Rakeem Johnson now. Connor Moore, right tackle, is going to start, presumably. Ashton Lepo started 12 games last year, had some struggles. Now he's a backup. Lepo's also been repping over at left tackle. I'm not saying Lepo's great, but you got to believe he's going to be a better version than he was last year. So backups are people like Vincic, Lepo, Rakeem Johnson, and Caleb Carter. Much better depth than last year. Coach is saying they could play as many as 7 or 8 or 9. I just mentioned who they are. Left tackle, Rustin Young. I've seen him rep backup left tackle. Played a little bit against Ohio State last year's true freshman, and understandably was terrible that day. Nothing against Rustin, but it was a learning experience. Was able to redshirt, and then he played against Jack Sawyer and who's the other guy, the defensive end they had? 40-something. Excellent player. So Rustin Young, not ready yet. So left tackle, you got Stanton Ramil, and I'm not sure you've got a lot behind him. I think Stanton Ramil, they kind of kept him on the bench in that second scrimmage and tried some other guys at left tackle to see who the backup left tackle can be or will be. Not sure what shook out there, but I don't think, Rakeem Johnson played left tackle against Ohio State emergency last year. They could probably survive with that. Lepo over at left tackle, maybe. Connor Moore, if there's an emergency, move him to left side. I've not heard that they've done that. I know in the spring they didn't move him over to the left side. But Stanton Ramil, if you're a Michigan State fan, you hope all these guys stay healthy, but they need Ramil to stay healthy. And Michigan State has better depth on the offensive line. And some of these guys are going to be around a while. Lepo's got another year after this. Vincic has another year after this. Rakeem Johnson's got 3 more years after this. So there's Gulbin will be gone, but Brocious and Phillips presumably will be back, and Ramil and Connor Moore. So there's a lot of these guys, if they stick around, next year's offensive line could, we'll see what they look like this year, but the year after could be excellent. But so I think they could be better, definitely better than last year. I'm not saying I'm saying they've got good depth at a lot of places, but I'm not telling you that they've got good depth for a second-string left tackle. It might be Lepo as a second-string left tackle, but there's better depth, but it's not like they're just plugging and playing great ones in the first and second string, but it's better. Not yet ready. I'd put Rustin Young in that category. Charlton Lunieski, I think he's making progress, not there yet. A.J. Dennis making progress, not there yet. Others, you got Mercer Lunieski, Cole Dellinger, Peyton Stewart further back, and that's not counting the incoming true freshman. Question, what number are we on now? Question 11? Ernie in Colorado. He says, hi, Jim. Putting team accolades aside, would have been some of your favorite seasons to cover at Michigan State football? Just curious if certain years have been more interesting, storyline wise, players, coaches that made covering the team more fun or interesting. Interesting. I mean, the Nick Saban days were always interesting, and it was fun because I'm a sports writer. I think I said this on the radio the other day. My grandfather was a coal miner, so you'll never hear me saying this stuff's a drag, even if Nick Saban is being Nick Saban. That's interesting. That's fun. So Saban years were always interesting. 1988, my first year, State News, Student Services Building, Gator Bowl season. State News was great. Amazing years. A lot of great people there. That was fun. That's probably the funnest job I've ever had. Still talk to M.L. Elric. He's the guy that took down Kwame Kilpatrick, won a Pulitzer Prize. Elric subscribes to SpartanMag, and count him as a friend. See him at Mun Ice Arena quite a bit. Michigan State games. Hear from him once in a while. Would like to see him more often. State News was good times. In 88, 1990, I was a stringer at the Lansing State Journal at that time. That was a good season. It's my 4th or 5th year on campus. Lived with a lot of great people. Michigan State 4-way tie, Big Ten title. The win at Michigan was interesting. Some of my housemates went down there and had a good time, raised a ruckus. One of which I went fishing with 2 weeks ago. My buddy Kid Sensation from Bend, Oregon came to town. And we went over to the old Ensemble Fly Shop. Picked up some stuff. Andy, good to see you again. And had a good time there. Back in 1990, the guy I was with, Kid Sensation, was wearing one of those Michigan State felt cowboy hats. And he was down in Ann Arbor strutting after Michigan State won that game in 90. Heard about that. I didn't witness it. I saw him in the hat, but I was busy that day. I was working, but that was an interesting year. 2014 at Oregon. Early in the season, fished the Deschutes River with Kid Sensation. Had a good time out there. They played Wyoming at home. Cowboy Jack Nowlin came back for that game. Great to see Cowboy Jack, his wife, and his young daughter, who's a great gymnast, by the way. Jack Nowlin worked for Spartan Magazine for several years. Moved back to his native Wyoming, but he came back for that game. I think it was that game. They played Wyoming, right? Good to see Jack. So 2014 was great. And defeated Michigan 35-11. That was when they buried Brady Hoke. Ohio State game, JT Barrett was perfect that day, as if he knew what the defensive signals were. Anyway, beat Penn State 34-10 at Happy Valley. Always a lot of fun, in my opinion, going to Happy Valley in November when it's cold and you got to drive on the turnpike and it might be a little bit slippery. I like it. I like being in Happy Valley when it's cold. Now Penn State's pretty much not a regular on the schedule anymore, but this year they're playing them in Penn State middle of the season. But if they play at Penn State in the future, I wouldn't mind one of those Christmas tree weekends going out there again. Cotton Bowl that year, beating Baylor 42-41, one of the more delicious comebacks in Michigan State football history. In terms of just personally, I saw my old buddy Hutchinson out there from Holly, Michigan. He lives in Texas and came out. Also, the next year saw Hutchinson. We went and watched Matt McQuaid play, and his teammates never, ever gave him the ball. He basically was frozen out. Didn't ride it that way at the time. Didn't want to create any problems. But McQuaid never got the ball. He had interesting teammates. McQuaid ended up being a really great player for a great team. Really good player, good role player for a great Michigan State team, 2019. Final Four team. So that 2014 season was fun. 2021 was really interesting. Mel Tucker, Kenneth Walker, all that stuff. It's before Mel Tucker went haywire. But that was a great celebratory breakthrough for Michigan State. First game of the year at Northwestern. Labor Day weekend, tailgating out there in Evanston with some of my Chicago friends, Stroker, Hollywood. One Count was out there. Cast of thousands. The newly hired Alan Haller went by our tailgate. He came in and talked with the people for a while. And first play of the game, Kenneth Walker goes the distance. And Michigan State that night looked tip-top. Went out to Miami. I didn't go to the game in Miami. COVID was going on. And there were restrictions on interview access and so forth. And you really didn't know whether the press box would even be open and so forth. So I didn't buy a flight, didn't go out there. Because COVID was still kind of a thing. That year, the explosiveness, winning at Rutgers 31-13, Jalen Naylor, 3 touchdowns, Kenneth Walker. there's some record, something like one of 5 teams in college football history to have two 200-yard receivers and a 200-yard rusher in the same game, something like that. Darius Snow led Michigan State in tackles that day at Rutgers way back in 2021. 9 tackles, Darius Snow. Got injured early in the 2022 season, right? And bless his heart, he's been trying to come back and still with the team. He's earned 3 or 4 academic degrees, masters, and so forth. Good kid, good Spartan, but I don't know if the wheels are quite there, but still plugging away at it. But he led the team in tackles back in 2021 at Rutgers. The Snow game against Penn State, Snow Globe Spartan Stadium. And I'm the first one to tell you that the last game of the year, if it's Thanksgiving weekend at Spartan Stadium, move it to Ford Field. I'm in favor of that. Maryland game, move it to Ford Field. If it's game 12, if it's Thanksgiving weekend, move it to Ford Field. If it's game 12 on the road, don't move game 11 out there. No, it's got to be Thanksgiving weekend. Michigan State's always had trouble selling tickets for that game. As great as the 2021 season was and as exciting as Naylor and Peyton Thorne and Kenneth Walker were, they had a good crowd for the Penn State game. Maybe one of the better crowds they've had for Thanksgiving weekend. And the snow was the thickest snow maybe Spartan Stadium has ever seen for a game day. And it was a game night. Maybe 4 inches on the ground by the end of the game. 5 inches by the time Paul and I did the VCast. Memorable day, great day. Those of you that wore ski pants, like I tell you, Big Movie wore ski pants at the stadium that day, and he was laughing in the snow, had a wonderful time. If you wore ski pants, you were fine. And snow, when it's snowing and it's 34 degrees or 31 degrees, that's better than rain and 35 degrees. Way better. That kind of snow, fabulous. And I thought it should be a public service announcement to incoming freshmen. At orientation, they should tell the next class of freshmen to make sure you bring layers and cold weather gear because it's going to be cold by late October. And we need you at the games, staying in the student section the entire game for 4 quarters in any kind of weather and all the elements. You got to embrace it. So you have to have the layers. And that includes snow pants if you got them. If not, layer it up and wear just rain pants. Some wide-legged rain repellent pants over some layers. Long john sweatpants, rain pants. You're good. It's the wetness. It's the wet legs when you're sitting down or standing up that'll get you. Everybody knows you got to have a coat, a hat, scarf, and all that stuff. But people forget about the legs. Don't neglect the legs, people. When the weather starts to turn, ski pants if there's a threat of snow. Snow Globe game, Penn State 2021. Memorable, legendary, phenomenal. Then Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Went to the College Football Hall of Fame. Had a decent time there. Paul caught COVID while we were down there. I didn't catch COVID that year. We were at a restaurant or bar somewhere or near there with Stroker and One Count, some of those guys. And Lorenzo White walked in, so it was good to say hello to Lowe. So those are some of the years that I remember. 98 Saban year. Pretty good team, but lost, didn't go to a bowl game. Saban's 4th year at Michigan State. Onside kick, lost to Purdue. Onside kick, lost to Minnesota. Ooh, devastating losses. Because the year 4 of Saban, Michigan won the national title in 97. And there was a lot of hope and belief in the Nick Saban process. But 98 took a step backward. With a starting line, they had like 16 NFL players on that team, and Nick Saban didn't get into a bowl game that year. Very emotional season. And there was some barking. So next year when they had a good season, Saban left. Because there was some barking, and he didn't like that. And he was trying to tell the president what the university should do. And the president was like, dude, Saban went on to become one of the great coaches in college football history. But anyway. NJ from Northville says, what was your take on Smith's demeanor from day 1 of camp? He says, to me, he seems more relaxed and confident than last year. Did you get that feel? Maybe he's finally getting comfortable here and bringing in some of his own players. Example, overhauling the wide receiver room with more speed. That's a question from NJ from Northville. More relaxed? Yes, I'd say so. More comfortable with the entire enterprise this year. The roster, the fans, the donors, the media, the facilities. He knows what he's up against schedule-wise, and he's more comfortable. And there's some confidence there, too. Maybe some quiet confidence, like they think that they can be a handful for some teams this year. Now, the Big Ten might be tougher than he expected, but I don't get the idea that he feels less confident about the overall challenge. He talks in terms of playing a 13th game and more every year. They think they can get there. They expect to get there, which is what you'd expect from a head coach and his coaching staff at this level. They have no shortage of belief. We'll see what kind of strides they make this season, but I agree with you. There's just a little bit more ease about him. Be interested to see if that's a reflection of anything that we'll see on the field. Question 10, Roxy from Grand Haven says, what position group do you think is the most improved since last year, and which position group do you think will surprise everyone? Most improved wide receivers, you got Nick Marsh. He'll be a better version of himself. Impact player, game changer, difference maker. Flanker, Omari Kelly, transfer, Middle Tennessee State. A guy that was a 4-star recruit, went to Auburn, didn't quite shake out at Auburn, went down a level to the power to the group of 5 at Middle Tennessee State, became all conference. Now he's back at the Power 4. Basically, he's on his contract year, right? He's a senior. He's excited. Good punt returner also. He's really impressed teammates and coaches. I mean, last year they had Montori Foster at that position, and he was pretty good. I thought Montori Foster was underrated. I kind of think Omari Kelly's going to be better. He might be a lot better, but Montori was pretty good. Omari Kelly is going to be better than pretty good, I think. Then in the slot position, pretty good competition. Krishan McCray, Rodney Bullard, a couple of really good ones. Krishan McCray, 40 catches last year at Kent State. More of a technician as a route runner, playmaker. Rodney Bullard is a guy that's really turned heads during camp. I think he was banged up a little bit in the spring. You heard more about McCray in the spring. This month, you heard more about Bullard. 42 catches last year at Valdosta State, 12 touchdown catches. Played for a team that played in the Division II National Championship game. Bullard in the slot can also move out to flanker. Speed guy. Speed. From what I hear, the route running might not be as precise as Krishan McCray. They're working on that. But Bullard, speed guy, Hawkins just kind of smiles about some of these guys. So those are the 3. And, last year Michigan State had Nick Marsh, freshman version. He'll be a better version of himself this year. Montori Foster's pretty good. And then you had like Isaiah Johnson. You had, what's the guy's name? Glover? Forgotten already. Glover and Isaiah Johnson lacked a little bit of that serious commitment. Maybe they'll get that where they are now. Glover, I think, is at North Carolina. Johnson went to Memphis. Maybe they'll mature into that. Omari Kelly said he's more mature now than he used to be, more disciplined than he used to be. So all that ability, now it's fine-tuned. Contract year, Omari Kelly, better version of him for a one and done. I think Michigan State got some really good value players here. They didn't really have to spend a lot. They spent some, but they didn't have to spend a lot for Kelly, McCray, and Bullard. And I think they're impact guys. They lose Glover, Johnson. Those guys might not have been as dedicated as you need. There's a step up in professionalism with these guys that they brought in. Remember at the end of the season last year, after the last game, when Aiden Giles says we need some players here that want to be here? He didn't name names. I'm not sure he was talking about Johnson and Glover, but I inferred that. I might be wrong about some other stuff that I've heard. Nothing against those guys. Like I said, maybe they'll find a level of discipline at their new places. But these guys coming in, Kelly, McCray, Bullard, have ramped up in that direction, in that category. Evan Boyd, transfer, big body guy, Central Michigan. He can be an X. So if he's an X, now Nick Marsh can move in and play some slot, play some flanker, put him in motion, do some things differently with Marsh because Evan Boyd gives you a big body guy. Last year there was nobody backing up Nick Marsh as an X. Marsh was only an X. In the slot, Alante Brown. They've kind of recruited over him a little bit. Alante Brown has ability, but I think McCray and Bullard are just too much there. The freshmen, they're excited about the freshmen. Might get on the field a little bit, but I think they can all redshirt. Charles Taplin might be the fastest guy on the team. Braylon Collier, good punt returner, slick guy out of Sandusky, Ohio. Bryson Williams might have been the best high school player in the state of Michigan last year at Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Big receiver, big running back last year for Orchard Lake St. Mary's. Played some defense. Best all-around high school player in the state last year. I know that Bryce Underwood is higher upside as a quarterback, as a specialty talent, of course. But Orchard Lake St. Mary's' coach last year, Jermaine Gonzalez, former Wolverine, by the way, said that Bryson Williams was the best player in the state last year. And I didn't see everybody in the state, but I don't doubt it. But all three of those guys may redshirt because Marsh, Kelly, McCray, and Bullard are ready to roll, and Boyd as well. You know, in the last year, and in the past with Hawkins, they don't usually go more than 5 wide receivers in the playing group. So I think it's gonna be Marsh, Kelly, McCray, Bullard, Boyd, Alante Brown a little bit. The freshmen will play a little bit, but I think they'll have the luxury of redshirting all those guys. One last question. Jay Like from Ferndale says, 1, who's the kicker going to be? 2, I keep hearing the offensive line is approved, but the bar was low. Will they be an asset or just not awful? And 3, how do you rate our coaching staff compared to other Big Ten schools? Whoo, that last question's a big one. All right, let's tackle these one at a time. Who's the kicker going to be? I haven't heard, but, Smith says that Ahmet Basic is making progress with his groin injury. I think it's going to be Sislo on Friday, transfer from Davenport. And good luck to him. That could be a good story. And if he does well, I mean, maybe Ahmet Basic doesn't beat him out. I don't know, but I think it's going to be Sislo on Friday. And after that, I think Ahmet Basic. But long term, it might be Connington. I don't know. You just hope that it's not a disaster. And they're talking like Sislo's pretty good. They don't seem to be worried. Maybe they're great poker players. I'm talking about the coaches. We'll see. Because if the kicking situation is bad, like I said, that could turn a 7-5 team into a 5-7 team. Just that one position. B, he says, I keep hearing the offensive line is approved, but the bar was so low. Will they be an asset or just not awful? Good question. Good way to phrase that question. I think somewhere in between. I'm not ready to say the offensive line is going to be an asset. I'm not ready to say that they're going to be pushing people all over the field like they did for Michigan for a quarter and a half to begin that game last year. Somewhere between an asset and just not awful. You probably want me to say that they're going to be great. I don't know. I've really not seen any 11-on-11 scrimmaging this fall. So I'm just kind of, it's like, before they play games, you're just feeling around a dark room trying to find what's going on. Talking to coaches, talking to players, talking to some insiders. And I think the offensive line is going to be respectable, productive against most teams. I'm not saying they're going to be able to run it down the throat of Penn State's defensive front, but game in and game out, I think they might be all right. And if they're better than I'm anticipating, then that gives you a chance to go on the road and beat USC, because the USC defense, the Lincoln Riley defenses, are always questionable, and they just changed to a new defensive coordinator. So a lot of rides on that offensive line. I'm not ready to say they're an asset yet. Would not shock me. Worth watching. Question C, and then we're going to wrap this one up. This is a long one. This is an essay question to wrap it up. It says, how do you rate our coaching staff compared to other Big Ten schools? All right. Let's talk about other Big Ten schools. Penn State, James Franklin, hired to be a savior. Not bad. He wins a national title this year, then the monkey's off his back, and he's an elite level guy. If he can, I know his record's terrible against top 10 teams, but Penn State's going to be pretty good this year. No surprise there. No news flash there. The coordinator there, Andy Kotelnicki, second year coming in for the Kansas Jayhawks. Multiple creative use of the tight ends last year. 2 backs. They did a lot of creative things last year. They'll keep doing it this year. I love the way they used that big tight end last year. He's good. And then they bring in Jim Knowles to be defensive coordinator. They steal him from Ohio State. So you got Franklin, a good offensive coordinator, a national championship defensive coordinator. Penn State, pretty good staff. James Franklin took some shots throughout his career, but he's managed to keep that thing chugging relatively nicely, and this could be the year. Ohio State, Ryan Day, national champion. Got Matt Patricia coming in as the new defensive coordinator. Brian Hartline, the new offensive coordinator. So they lost Chip Kelly. They lost Jim Knowles to Penn State. Hartline's been a great recruiter, great wide receiver coach with great talent. Now can he call plays? Ryan Day used to do that. We'll see what happens there in the offense. Patricia, he's excited to be there. Still, it's new. So new coordinator, new D coordinator, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback. And Ohio State has a locker room full of players that Can they handle being a national champion? Probably they can handle it pretty well because they probably keep getting reminded of the Michigan thing. So that might keep them grounded. But pretty good coaching staff, Ryan Day, James Franklin. Dan Lanning at Oregon, probably turned down the Alabama job. Offensive coordinator Will Stein was at Texas San Antonio for 3 years. Prior to that, he was a high school coach at Texas for a couple of years. The defensive coordinator, Tosh Lapoy, he's been there for 3 years with Lanning. Prior to that, he was an NFL assistant. I don't know much about Oregon's defensive situation, but Dan Lanning is regarded as one of the best coaches in the country. He's only been doing it a short time. Iowa's got Kirk Ferentz. Got Phil Parker. Iowa's Iowa. Pretty good. I think Jonathan Smith is pretty good, but, he's got a ways to go before proving that he's Kirk Ferentz. I have compared Joe Rossi to Phil Parker. When Rossi was at Minnesota, I compared his defenses to Iowa's, which is a great compliment. So, Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa. You know what those guys are, and pretty strong. In terms of, sudden risers, coaching staffs, Curt Cignetti at Indiana coming in. He's a savior, right? Long term, is he a savior? Have to wait and see. I do think his defensive coordinator is really good. Bryant Haynes, very good defensive coordinator, came with him from James Madison. Offensive coordinator, you got Mike Shanahan. Previously, it was Tino Sunseri. Tino Sunseri went out to UCLA. But Cignetti's, I think, the brains behind that offense. They did a good job of play design last year. Everybody could see that. So Cignetti is a sudden riser at Indiana. Illinois, Bielema. He's become a savior. He was a retread. I usually don't believe in hiring retreads, but he's proving that retread is getting it done. Bielema style. Defensive coordinator Aaron Henry, 36 years old. He was defensive backs coach under Ryan Walters before Walters left Illinois to become head coach at Purdue. Now Walters is defensive coordinator at Washington. But Aaron Henry, 36 years old, played for Bielema at Wisconsin. And then the offense looks like Bielema ball. Barry Lunny is the offensive coordinator, and he was an assistant for Bielema at Arkansas. But Bielema, no slouch, right? And then, so those are the recent risers. Then I put a category of consistently solid. PJ Fleck, Minnesota. I think he's very good. His teams are consistently solid. Not easy to win there, but they're buttoned up operation, physical, square on defense. They go to bowl games every year. And I'm not sure Minnesota fans appreciate him as much as they should. And if they have a good year this year, he's going to be moving on, I think. That's why I got that big new contract extension. They're trying to defend that. And that's smart for them to do that. Offensive coordinator Greg Harbaugh, no relation. Defensive coordinator Danny Collins, first year, was a safety coach for Joe Rossi previously. Replaced Corey Heatherman, who's now at Miami. So Fleck has some attrition there in the defensive coaching staff. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can hold that together for the long term. But I think PJ Fleck's very good. And a couple of years ago, he was a guy that people thought could get a job at A&M or Tennessee or LSU. Fleck is still pretty good. Rutgers, Greg Schiano has Rutgers playing above its material grade. Offensive coordinator Kurt Chiraka, he was at Minnesota, left to go to Penn State. They released him. Now he's at Rutgers, doing a pretty good job. They had that run game really pumping with, what's his name, the physical running back last year. Monungai, is that his name? Defensive coordinator, they lost the defensive coordinator to become head coach at UMass. Brought in Rob Smith. It's a co-coordinator situation. One guy previously was with Schiano at Rutgers and with the Buccaneers, and another guy, Zach Sparbert. He's more of a younger guy. They've been 7-6 the last 2 years. Not great, but pretty good on a given day. Schiano's a good coach, and 7-6 is what a good coach looks like at Rutgers. In terms of saviors pending, these guys were supposed to be saviors. Hasn't happened yet. Lincoln Riley, supposed to be a savior at USC. Defense still sucks. Offensive coordinator Luke Heward. They moved on from Josh Henson, who wound up at Purdue. Defensive coordinator Deontay Lynn, who was defensive coordinator at UCLA in 2023, previously an NFL assistant. So Riley's still doing musical chairs on the defensive side. I don't know. He calls the plays. He's the offensive coordinator. I don't know if he's ever going to win enough to satisfy everybody out there long term, but he's still Lincoln Riley. So you want to compare Jonathan Smith to Lincoln Riley? 3 years ago, people have been like, what are you talking about? Lincoln Riley's one of the best coaches in the country. So when you look at the schedule, Michigan State's not only playing USC and Iowa and Minnesota. I mean, they're playing Cignetti, they're playing Fleck, they're playing Lincoln Riley, they're playing Ferentz, playing James Franklin. It's tough out there. Nebraska, savior pending, Matt Rule. A lot of people think they're going to break through this year. I think they could. I think the schedule sets up nicely. Raiola's in his second year. They were close in a lot of ways last year. Offensive coordinator Dana Holgerson, formerly head coach at West Virginia and Houston. He's formerly an air raid guy. He's kind of come off the air raid stuff a little bit, but Holgerson, respected offensive guy. Defensive coordinator John Butler's got an NFL background. Matt Rule is a good overall program macro coach. Savior, pending. Matt Rule, Lincoln Riley. Jonathan Smith, savior pending. Washington, Jed Fish, trying to keep the ball rolling, had a great year at Arizona 2 years ago. Excellent offensive mind. Does he end up going back to the NFL? I don't know. Offensive coordinator, they promoted Jimmy Doherty from passing game coordinator. They lost Pete Carroll's son. Went to coach with Pete. The Raiders. Lost Bill Belichick's son. Stephen Belichick. Went to the Tar Heels. Brought in D coordinator Ryan Walters, who I thought was a really good coordinator for Illinois. Now he's with Washington. Jed Fish is the main offensive mind there, although Jimmy Doherty's promoted from passing game coordinator. But Jed Fish, good coach. Jonathan Smith is a good coach. Luke Fickell, remember him? He's a good coach. Savior pending. Not looking so good. Took Cincinnati to the college football playoff. Luke Fickell turned down Michigan State. Struggling. Defensive coordinator Mike Tressel. Our friend Mike Tressel's been up and down there as the coordinator. On offense, they got rid of Phil Luongo, going away from the dairy raid, going more to Wisconsin, more of a conventional Badger type ball. Hired Jeff Grimes from Kansas, Jayhawk coach, used to be at Baylor, offensive line background. It's going to look more like Badger ball as Fickell tries to, I don't want to say try to save his job. His buyout's like $30 million or something. They're not going to fire him. Savior pending. And then Sharon Moore is kind of in a category of his own. Savior, I mean, they didn't really need a savior. They were breaking a lot of rules and won a lot of games, and they bring him in, and it's not like he's trying to save the program. He's not elite. He's not consistently solid yet. So Sharon Moore, Wink Martindale, defensive coordinator, I thought did better as the season went along. Fired Kurt Campbell as offensive coordinator, hired Chip Lindsey, who was at North Carolina the past 2 years under Mack Brown. The offensive brain trust there, not sure. Chip Lindsey, good luck. And then there's the unsteady coaches. Mike Lotzley at Maryland, who's done a good job. I mean, he had 3 straight winning seasons, 3 straight bowl games, 3 straight bowl wins before last season. Pep Hamilton, his new offensive coordinator, formerly of Michigan. Loxley, I think, has done a good job at Maryland. But losing season, we'll see what happens next. Deshaun Foster last year, they had a 3-game win streak in the middle of the season. They beat Rutgers, beat Nebraska, beat Iowa. Looked pretty good. Did some pretty good things to finish 5-7. I mean, people were laughing at that hire. Didn't do well at media day. Of course, that means nothing. But UCLA was a pretty decent operation at times last season, despite a lot of I don't know what the word would be. It's getting late. Recording this pretty early in the morning. It's so late. It's early. Barry Odom at Purdue. Been at Missouri. Been at UNLV. Good luck. That's gonna be tough. David Braun at Northwestern. Good luck. Big Ten Coach of the Year in 2023, taking over for Fitzgerald. Went 8-5. Now 4-8. Northwestern's gonna have a hard time in the transfer portal era for a lot of reasons. So Maryland, UCLA, Purdue, Northwestern. Things are unsteady. Jonathan Smith. How does he compare to these? We'll know more after this year. I think he's in that Jed Fish category. I think Jed Fish is pretty good. Luke Fickell went to the college football playoff at Cincinnati. That's great stuff. Jonathan Smith has had a good start to his career as a young coach, but he has nothing on his resume like Luke Fickell. But just because Fickell's been at it a while and not done well, do you slot Jonathan Smith a little bit ahead of him? Yeah, for now. So my point is, all these guys are good. Braun did well at the bottom with Northwestern, man. Loxley's done well at Maryland. I'm telling you. There's a lot of guys getting paid a lot of money, hired because they've done a good job coaching elsewhere, but they can't all have good records. So that's the neighborhood, and it's tough. So you're asking me to compare it against all these guys? He's not yet Potentially could happen. He's planning to make it happen. He's not James Franklin, Ryan Day, Dan Lanning. He's not Kirk Ferentz. He hasn't had the quick rise like Signetti or Bielema. He wants to get to where Bielema is, and I think that's possible. He's not yet as consistently solid as PJ Fleck is, and Fleck's done some great things. He's not where Schiano is yet. Schiano's a very good coach who probably is better than Rutgers, but he fits there. He was hired at Tennessee, then Clay Travis, as the people were yapping about it, ended up not happening. But Schiano's a good coach. Lincoln Riley, one of the great coaches in college football not long ago at Oklahoma. Where does he rank among coaches in the Big Ten now? 9th, 10th? That's that mosh pit, the middle 10 teams. That's where USC is now. Matt Rule has done some great things in the past at different stops. Jed Fish did some great stuff at Arizona. Luke Fickell. There's good ones. It's tough. So Jonathan Smith's going to start trying to prove it again beginning Friday. Western Michigan, Spartan Stadium. It's going to be fun. We'll be covering it at SpartanMag.com. Give us a look over there. Subscribe to SpartanMag.com. Paul Konerdijk, Jason Killip, Jake Laskawa, Kenny Jordan, Cast of Thousands, the venerable Matt Dorsey, Dorsicles the Wise, checks in with a lot of smart things on the message board and the rest of them. Anyway, check us out over at SpartanMag.com. Thanks for checking in, and we'll see if Spartan Mag Live, if we do it the old-fashioned way in the future, or if we stick to this format. We'll have to wait and see. But thanks of those of you that asked questions. Went an hour and 20. Was trying to keep it under 40 minutes. Didn't happen. I failed. So no helmet sticker for me, but we'll do our best. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. SpartanMag.com. Go check it out.